Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this video. This is my 2019 F250 PowerStroke 6.7, and the goal of this YouTube channel is to see how long I can get this truck to last and how many miles I can put on it. So in this video, I'm planning to start a sequence where every month I do a check-in with you all to let you know how it's going. How many miles have I driven? How much maintenance have I had to do? How many warranty recalls have I done with Ford? Just so you have an idea of, at the end of the day, how much work does it take to keep a truck like this going? What are some of the weak points of these trucks, and so forth. So join me as I go on this journey. I'm sure will take a couple years. I'm sure it'll be expensive. And if you want to know more about the backstory behind why I am doing this experiment, you should check out the other video I have on my channel, which is the channel introduction. Alright, so to start this video with a mileage update, the truck currently has 87,712 miles on it. I am due for an oil change at 90K, so we're coming up on that. And my last oil change, I did my fuel filters. I also, when I come up to 100K, that's a big milestone for a lot of these trucks, I am going to be changing my transfer case fluid. I am also going to be doing fuel filters again. I'm going to be doing oil again. I will be doing a video on my maintenance intervals. I actually am using the maintenance intervals recommended by PowerStroke Tech Talk with A-Rod. You guys should check out his channel. Because this is the first check-in I'm doing, I'm gonna go through the build that I've done so far in terms of swapping over motorcraft parts to aftermarket parts. I'm also going to talk about some of the dings that are on the truck that are from me being an idiot. And I'm also going to talk about what warranty stuff I've had to do so far with Ford. So one of the first things you'll all notice is that there are not stock motorcraft shocks on this truck. I did all Fox Performance 2.0 shocks. They are not the Carly Tune shocks, they're just the out-of-the-box Fox shocks, and it made a massive difference in the handling of this vehicle. The second thing you'll immediately notice when looking at the truck is that it has oversized tires. I opted to go from a set of Michelins that I had on here and go to the Cooper AT3 XLT tires. These are 35 1250s and they're on an 18-inch stock wheel. I've also added a deep sump BD transmission pan, so I have the 6R140 transmission, and so I added the BD pan to lower my trans temps a little bit. I had to do a fluid change on it, and I realized the stock Ford trans pan doesn't have a drain plug, so that was the main reason I went after the aftermarket. Many of you will also notice that I have covered the cloth seats in my XLT with leather seat covers. These are from Vertex, and they're about 750 bucks, but they have a really good fit and finish, and they were kind of a step down from the catskin leather seats that I've seen other channels do, so these were definitely a great option. Now you may not be able to see it from here, but I did also put a Bilstein steering stabilizer, which has been okay. I'm not a huge fan of it, honestly. I'm going to be putting a Fox one on there soon, but it was cheap and I needed to replace the OEM one. Alright, so I've also added the BD high idle switch. This plugs right into your factory wiring harness over on the kick panel, and it allows you to not have to wire in all the upfitter switches. And if your truck doesn't have upfitter switches like mine, this is awesome. It controls the revs from 900 up to 3000. You will see there are two things that I have done that are aftermarket. I still have my EGR so that it's still on there. The previous owner of this truck put on this AFE Magnum Force cold air intake, which is okay. I'm not super excited about the fit and finish of this. I think I want to go to an SMB cold air intake that has the glass cover on it. In my opinion, that looks a little bit better, but this does the job. And then you'll see I also replaced the cold side pipe that are very problematic on 6.7s. I replaced it with the SMB cold side pipe. I've also added the SPE fuel water separator drain plug that was one of the first things I did because they're pretty easy to swap out, and I didn't want to have to worry about the Ford yellow plastic one breaking, but I did hold on to that just in case. I'm sure this is the reason why you all are here, is to learn what problems I have had with this truck since owning it. And I will, again, keep you updated in future videos, but since this is the first one, it's a bit longer because I'm catching up everyone on the first 87,000 miles of this truck. So the first thing I had warranted, and this was covered under my extended warranty, the front end. So everyone knows about death wobble. It happens on a lot of different vehicles, but Ford Super Duties seem to get it quite a lot because for whatever reason Ford cheaps out on their front end parts. So I was not getting death wobble. I actually noticed it because I saw a video, shout out to PTT with A-Rod. He talked about how to check your front end for play. So when I was doing an oil change, I actually was crawling around and I noticed ball joint on the drag link. And then I also noticed that the tie rods were rusty. And so I took it into Ford. I was like, hey, there's a play in this, you know, in the ball joint, in my drag link, you know, what, like, is this covered, whatever. Turns out it was. They did the whole repair. They replaced the tie rod ends, and the drag link. So the other thing that I noticed was an oil leak. And this was also while I was changing my own oil. I noticed that a leak was coming from somewhere near the front of the engine. And so I brought it into Ford, and it was the infamous upper oil pan leak that happens on the 17 through 19s. I guess the, what is it, the 20 to 22s have the same problem, but they also get the lower oil pan as an issue. So that was covered under my 100,000 mile powertrain or engine warranty, the diesel warranty. And so I brought it in and they had to pull the cab, and it was like 2 days of work. The other thing that Ford replaced, and this was the last thing they had to do under warranty, was there was a leak in my DEF hose that ran from the DEF tank up to the DPF. And I also noticed that when I was crawling around under there changing the fuel filters. And so that was covered under my extended warranty. They ended up replacing the sensor in the DEF tank and the hose that ran from the tank to the DPF. Now, in terms of maintenance that I've had to do that was not covered by Ford, I had to do a brake job on the rear. That also included the parking brake. It was seized. There was a lot of squeaking going on, although I did get 85,000 miles out of those rear brakes. So, I mean, it was, you know, I had it at the dealer and I had them do it, which in hindsight was a bad idea because it was expensive. But I did new pads, new rotors, new calipers, and you know, when they do your rear end with Ford, they have to do axle seals as well. Yes, it was expensive, but I feel pretty good that, you know, with my driving habits, that I really got 85K out of those brakes. So that was well worth it. I would say, generally speaking, I've had this truck for, you know, for a year and a half now, and it's been very reliable. It's never let me by the side of the road, but I've also been hyper vigilant, on what needs done, right? Like I mentioned, there was a bunch of stuff that I caught by crawling around under my truck. And so if I hadn't caught that, I think, yes, this truck probably would have left me by the side of the road. Okay, so in terms of damage I've done, I was going to the grocery store and I backed into a light pole, and so I now have a dent in my bumper on the passenger side. I was very disappointed at myself. The other damage that I have caused to the truck that was a bit more expensive than backing into a light pole was I was towing a trailer with the wrong size ball. The trailer came off. I had the safety chains on, but it swung under as I was going around a corner, hit my factory exhaust and smashed it up into this rear panel that you see is now broken. Now, I did bend it back a little bit. Aluminum's kind of hard to do that with, but I was able to get it a little bit down. And then I bent the factory exhaust down, but it was pretty badly beat up, so I ended up getting a MBRP DPF back 4-inch exhaust, which had the added benefit of giving me like another half a mile per gallon with the cold air intake. That's what I've done to the truck so far, at least at a high level. I'm sure we'll get into other parts of what I've done, and I'm sure I've forgotten things, but we'll continue on with the videos. I hope this was helpful. these trucks are definitely expensive to maintain. I think part of the reason I got into understanding motors and kind of being my own maintenance guy was, if you go to somewhere to get diesel oil change, you know, the average shop will charge you like 200 bucks. And I know there's probably places that are cheaper, and it depends on where you are, but I'd rather do it myself, know it was done right, pay a little extra, get some better oil with that money, instead of, you know, having someone else throw it up on a lift and overfill my engine with oil. So definitely use YouTube as a resource. And, you know, I think for a lot of people, it just makes sense to do your own work, do your own maintenance, because at the end of the day, it's your vehicle and no one's going to pay attention to it and what it needs as much as you will. Thanks for checking out this episode of PowerStroke Maintenance. I appreciate you watching the video. Please consider subscribing if you'd like to follow along. I will be covering in depth all of the new additions I do to this truck and the things I have to add to it to keep it running. Until next time, cheers.